You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 148. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, I want to talk about one of my pet peeves when it comes to the podcast industry. Last week, an article came out in Bloomberg News by Ashley Carman about how some podcasts are charging up to $50,000 for someone to be a guest on their show. $50,000. That's the cost of a car, a down payment on a home, college tuition for a year or two. It's absolutely ridiculous. And she calls out some podcasts along with a company called Guestio, which is all for paying podcast hosts to interview guests on their show. Now, this is my big pet peeve because paying to be a guest is, in PR, advertising. When you pay someone to promote you, to have you as a guest, to include you in an article, an interview, anything like that, it's a guarantee that you're going to be used as a source. That's advertising. That is not public relations in any way, shape, or form. And some arguments are that, well, the host has grown their audience and they've done all this work and it costs them something. That's BS. And I'm just going to call it as it is, because I know how much it costs me to have my show, but my show benefits me. You get to know me, whether it's as a person, as a business owner. You get the choice to work with me if you'd like to, because you're getting to know me. It's my audience. I know that if someday I want to sell a book, then I can tell you about it. And I already have a built-in warm audience. I'm not in this to make a ton of money off of my podcast. I've gone over this before, and the cold, hard truth is that podcasts don't make a ton of money unless you do put ads in it and you get sponsors and that sort of a thing. The other thing that really irks me is John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneurs on Fire. He was actually one of the very first podcasts I pitched to many, many years ago. And his team came back and said, it's $3,500 for your client to be a guest. My jaw dropped. I couldn't imagine that someone was going to charge that kind of money, let alone now people are charging $50,000. But $3,500 just seemed absurd to me. And the other thing that goes along with it is that these hosts are not disclaiming that they're being paid. They're making tons of money, and they're not sharing with you, the audience, that they have paid these people to come on. John's excuse, I'm going to say excuse because that's to me what it is, for charging people $3,500 to be a guest on his show is that he said he saw people finally show up on time. He said they were then prepared to give valuable information and education to his audience. Come on. I don't get paid to be a guest. I don't pay my guests. And guess what? Everyone shows up on time. Everyone has been prepared. They have their microphone and headset properly put together. They are ready to give valuable information without paying $3,500 for the pleasure of giving it. So that's just absolutely asinine. To me, a podcast interview is just like if it's a job interview, if it's a meeting with a client or prospective client, a meeting with anybody, you should show up on time. That's just a simple no-brainer. So if he has people that weren't showing up on time, then maybe he was looking at the wrong guests. But $3,500 to ensure that someone shows up on time is absolutely ridiculous. Now, because of this article coming out, I have seen people unsubscribe and stop listening to him because he didn't relay this information and be truthful from the start. I knew this, and I have never pitched to his team, and I will never pitch to his team again. I have seen some hosts who come and say, we'd like to do $150, but with that $150, we're going to give you ad placements for the next 2 months. And I have had clients say, that sounds great because that's the target audience and we will pay for the advertising. We're not paying for them to be a guest. We're paying for the actual advertising, which is what this is all about. Now, here's what really burns me. I believe that podcasts have the power to change lives. Podcasts are an opportunity for people to show their expertise, to talk about their issues that they're advocating for, to educate you, to give you the experience that they've gone through, to share their story so that you're not alone. And in people paying to be a guest, in hosts charging people to come on their show, that to me takes away from what the entire point of a podcast is. It makes it disgusting. It's slimy, it's dirty. And to quote the FTC, it's misleading. The F has not been involved, and that's the Federal Trade Commission, has not been involved in the podcasting industry. It's very unregulated. It's like the wild, wild west out here. And that's why there's no rhyme or reason when it comes to things like pitching a podcast. I get all sorts of different pitches. Most of them are in the wrong format. And going back to Guestio, Travis Chappell is their CEO and founder, and he claims that people are paying publicists like myself to be pitched on shows, and he doesn't see why a publicist should be paid when the host should be paid. Let's clarify that for a minute, because I work my rear end off to create relationships with podcast hosts to ensure that I'm connecting the right hosts with the right clients, and to ensure that my clients are also prepared so that someone like John Lee Dumas can't say that they didn't show up and are ready to give it their all. They are. They're not in this to make tons of money on the side or to pay to get to the wrong audience. So I really disagree with that notion that a publicist shouldn't be paid to do their job, because it is a job. It takes hours upon hours every month to properly do research, pitching, follow up, to make sure that the client knows where they're supposed to be. And Chappell says that the only person not making money in all of this is the host. Well, surprise, the host should be doing a better job if they're wanting to profit off of their podcast. A podcast host shouldn't just be in it for the money, though. And this is where the big issue lies. A podcast host should be in it to change lives, to better their audience's lives in the enrichment, the education, the experience, and the stories that they're sharing. If you're just in it for the money, it's not going to work because it's meaningless. Your audience is going to know that you are in it for the money. Just as Entrepreneurs on Fires, all of their audience now knows that JLD is in it for the money. He claims that a guest is investing when they pay him $3,500 to be on his show. That's not an investment. Maybe you're going to have a return, maybe you're not, but you shouldn't have to pay someone in order to energize yourself and ensure that there's momentum to show up on time and to share the valuable information that you have. If you need that kind of motivation to simply show up on time, then there are a lot bigger issues that need to be spoken about and dealt with. So I am highly against paying to be a guest on a show. I love the podcast industry because there isn't these huge exchanges of money. And yet now it's coming to light how much money truly is being exchanged. There's a biohacking podcast that he's charging $50,000 to be on it. $50,000 to be told that you could take some supplement and do something else for yourself to make it that you've hacked your body in a bio way and all of that nonsense. $50,000. This is absurd. There are plenty of shows. There are plenty of blog posts that are going to tell you the same exact thing, and nobody paid $50,000 to share that information. I think another big part of the problem is that these days we are paying influencers, and I use air quotes, to promote products. And people are going out and they're buying them because this influencer, not even a celebrity, and by celebrity, I mean somebody that we all know because they've been in a movie or a TV show that we're all familiar with, but somebody who does TikTok videos every day, somebody who keeps showing up on Instagram and sharing pictures of them in different outfits that they've been sent, or they are sharing the different products that they've tried. But do they really believe in them? Probably not, but they've been paid to do so. And that's why platforms like Instagram are now mandating that you have to notify your followers that this is a sponsored ad. You got paid for this. The same thing needs to be done in the podcasting industry if people are going to charge to have guests on the show, because now it's advertising. It is now the fact that this person could afford to pay this amount of money to be a guest on the show is why they're a guest. It's no longer about the story they have to share or the experience they've been through or the education that they can provide to better the lives of the listeners. So this is my rant for the week. Do not pay to be a guest on a show. If you are paying for ad space, that is completely separate. That is advertising, and that is what it means to pay to play. But do not pay for a guest spot. I highly disagree with it, and I discourage clients from doing so. If you are a host and you suddenly feel like maybe you should be charging guests to come on the show, then I would encourage you to reconsider why you have a show. What is fueling you to have a podcast every single week? Because if it's about the money, then you need to change your mindset around it. My show is, I say selfishly for me, because I learned so much about other people, about the experiences they've been on, and I get to interview incredible people that I want to get to know. But I also understand that on the flip side, every time I share a part of my story or educate you on things like paying to be a podcast guest or bringing someone on the show that has a story that could change your life or make you think just a little bit deeper about an issue, then that's what my podcast is for. This is why I do it. I'm not in this to make tons of money. I don't make money off the podcast unless we look at the business that I have and how you get to know me. You can decide that you want to work with me before ever meeting me because I'm in your ear. We're getting up close, personal, and intimate in these conversations. It's you and me. It's me and a guest and you, and it doesn't get any closer than that. Remember this as you're listening to shows. Do your research if you are a guest and don't pay for them. Simply don't. There are alternatives. You will find the audience that needs to hear from you, and it will not cost you $3,500 or $50,000. Your money is better spent doing other things. As always, friends, I appreciate you. I thank you for listening. And I'm glad that you've come to my TED Talk on why you shouldn't pay for podcast guest spots.